All right. Well, this will be a lot of fun, and this has been an awesome day, and it's really just the beginning of an awesome week. So very thrilled and excited to be joined by Mike Panetta, Product Development Manager of Diamond Pistons, Trend Performance, and DART, and Steve Rohde, General Manager of Trend Performance, to talk about Pistons. Gentlemen, how are y'all this afternoon?
Great, doing well.
Good. Well, good. Happy to hear that. And thank you very much for coming along and doing this today, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be very interested in what we're talking about here today and what your product offerings are. I do want to encourage everyone that if you have a question, just type it down into the chat and we'll make sure we get as many of them as we can. And really, this is your chance. This is your trade show. So please ask away, and we would love to talk about it all. But let's just sort of catch up. Mike and Steve, just kind of give us an overview. What's happening at Diamond right now?
We are beyond busy, with respect of what's been going on over the last couple of years. We have been adding part numbers. We've been working tirelessly to improve manufacturing and adding capacity here and there. We're now well over 2,000 SKUs of stocking and non-stocking pistons. We've been adding some media here and some custom forms and some different avenues to let the customer kind of dial in what they're looking for. And, just trying to deliver, working real hard on cutting lead times down and just becoming as available as possible to help everybody out and gain more of that market share.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking around at the website earlier, and you talk about custom pistons and the order form and just all of the detail that goes into what you're available or what you guys are able to afford to a customer, as far as just giving them exactly what they want and what they're looking for.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of engine specs and measurements and details that go into building the right piston for the application. And that's where that order form becomes really critical, getting all the proper measurements. That way everything kind of stacks up to, tolerance wise and spec wise together. So it's all a working system once they get the final parts in their hands.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing. Well, from what I'm hearing, you guys have made a pretty good investment in some new CNC machine tools. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so with the onslaught of demand, as we've seen, over the past year or so, with everything with COVID and delays in supply chains and stuff like that, we've put some investment into our manufacturing and put 3 new 7-axis machines on the floor to keep up with the demand and hold our lead times as best as we can.
Wow, that's a great thing and a great service to the customer. Hey, I'm curious. So you said, you talk about all the different SKUs and adding new part numbers. When you're making products and when you're, designing and developing pistons, and, I don't know how often maybe something just gets tweaked a little bit. Like what constitutes a new part number? Does that make sense? Like how big of a change from what you had to what you're going to would make for a new part number?
Yeah, so we kind of use trends as a scale of what we think we need to add to our stocking line. So if we see the same trends in ordering from on the custom side, anywhere from the same dome volume or same bore size and compression height, over and over again, that kind of red flags us to, hey, let's look at this and let's dive into it to see if we can offer a off-the-shelf part for the customer. It'll save them time. It saves us time internally because it cuts all the engineering steps out of it.
Yeah, a lot of revamping to catalog part numbers and just bring them up with the times.
Right. As anything, each year combinations change, popularity of combinations change. So we kind of just keep the flow of staying with what's modern and what's upcoming.
Yeah, I've never thought about it from y'all's end. You talk about trends, and when people, we know how racing is. I mean, if someone finds something that works, then everybody wants what they found once they find out what it is. But is there like an example? I mean, give us an idea of what you might see that all of a sudden maybe this form of racing or this type of engine or whatever is all of a sudden going in a direction that, like you said, would constitute, okay, we need a part number, we need to start manufacturing for this.
Yeah, so I mean, like prime example, NHREC Pro Mod, right? Based on the rules and combinations and stuff like that, Hemi Pro Charger has been really popular the past couple of years. So a lot of guys have switched from a root style or a nitrous engine to either Hemi Pro Charger or roots. So depending on the combination, compression ratios, dome volume, that all changes. But it's pretty similar across all the, combinations of that power plant. So that's kind of where, it's a good example for how,
Noticing a trend and
right,
tailoring the business towards that.
especially as these, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, finish up.
Yeah, especially, as rules get built out and, organizations try to, bring the combinations closer together. It opens up, a larger market share for us because more of those combinations are running every weekend.
Mm-hmm. What about custom pistons and just how all of that's generated, concept to reality? If I want something custom, I'm looking at the order form and all of that. Can you give us an idea of what the process is?
Yeah, so the order form would be the official step, the first step. Basically, we would have the customer or the engine builder fill out as much detail as they can, and then we can start to lay out the parts in engineering based off of their requirements and requests. And then as things pop up, as things pop up as we build it out, we could say, hey, you requested this, but this is quite not you're not going to be able to get this compression ratio because you can't put that much dome in the combustion chamber size that you have, or this compression height is too short and it won't allow you to build out your land stack up enough for the application if it's a power adder or naturally aspirated. And then we can bounce back and forth with the customer and kind of fine tune in to the perfect design, perfect print before we even start cutting anything.
How long does that typically take?
Initial orders, that's about a week or so prior to once the order is placed and to once it gets into engineering. It's about 7 to 10 day lead time. And then once it's through engineering, we're about 2 weeks in manufacturing currently.
Oh, that's not bad. How much having all the new CNC equipment? I mean, does that kind of help really speed things up a lot?
Yeah, it definitely does. Especially we have two different lines that we run production style. One more for larger runs, and those CNCs actually the part starts as a raw casting, raw forging, and then comes out as a finished part, all in one operation. Where the other line's more traditional drop line,
single step process.
Yeah, so it'll go through each step on different CNC machines to get through all the features of the part.
Wow, that's actually pretty fascinating in the way all of that works. When someone's ordering custom pistons, I'm sure if you have an off-the-shelf product, especially something in stock, that's probably a much better thing. At what point do you start to find that out? I mean, can you look at some of the specs on an order form and go, wait a second, we have this already. What goes on with that?
Yeah, the very common combinations with block deck height and rod length, stroke and whatnot, those are going to be your shelf stock. But another thing that sets Diamond apart from a lot of other manufacturers is our ability to be really quick on our feet and do job changes to already engineered parts. So like I can call in and reference a stocking catalog item or a non-stock catalog item and say, hey, I really, I'd like to run this part, but I need the bore change by 15th thou. Well, guess what? We can do that. It's very, very quick job change, run it through the Maltus side of things. So your lead time is not impacted in a negative way. And it's essentially a custom piston that required 1/10 of the engineering that a full custom required.
And that also cuts the cost down. It's just a small surcharge over what the shelf part would be compared to, X amount of points over on a custom.
Oh, wow. That's actually a really good thing to be able to have and to be able to offer. Speaking of just what you guys have off the shelf, I know at least in looking with the website, there's a handful of new featured products. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, so this year we've expanded our Sport Compact line and our Modern Muscle. We added a product line for the 7.3 Godzilla. That's starting to become a popular request from our customers. So we jumped ahead and made a shelf line for that prior to having to work through the custom realms on it. Sport Compact, we added some to our BMW offerings, our Ecotech offerings, and our EcoBoost offerings.
That's pretty, and have, you know, as far as like starting to really see a response on something like that. And when you start to talk about the customer base there as well, is this, how much of this is, hey, these are our customers, these are what they're asking? How much of it also is, look, we see a demand here, we're going to make a product, but we've got to get into that market?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mix, you know, especially like the Sport Compact. Diamond for years and years was traditionally drag race, circle track, customs, domestic auto. About 7-8 years ago, we kind of really dipped our feet into coming up with a Sport Compact line. And, you know, it's year over year has grown and grown as the brand gets recognized. And, you know, we picked the correct partners to work with initially to get the name out there and get the product out there. And it's been a great success, you know, and we try to do that with any segment. Modern muscle, automotive, Sport Compact, diesel, you know, it's all about partnering with the correct people up front and getting, you know, getting everything in line to be able to get that out there in front of the customer and you know, really kind of showcase what makes Diamond different from the rest.
Mm-hmm. Give us an idea of some of the questions you get asked, and I'm sure there are some things that might come up, you know, more than once that maybe people aren't seeing something the same way, or you know, like me with a lot of things, sometimes you know a little bit about something but not everything, and it's hard for people to acknowledge that. But just some questions that come up often that might be maybe misguided questions, if you will, that people really are probably better off knowing.
Yeah, so I mean, we get a lot of that, you know, and the nice thing about Diamond's sales and tech team, it's made up of ex-engine builders, racers, enthusiasts. So they have a lot of knowledge background that, you know, kind of help customers guide through some of those off the wall or misconceived questions. You get a lot of like compression ratios, piston wall clearance, material for applications,
Valve pocket depths,
valve pocket depths,
selection,
should I gas port, should I not gas port,
coatings.
Yeah, coatings is probably a big one that people kind of get sideways with what they read on the internet and what they actually, you know, the function of actual coating does for their application. So especially if somebody calls and they got a naturally aspirated engine, you know, pump gas street car, and somebody, you know, recommended they get a hard anodized coating like we would use on a top fuel. Well, 9 out of 10 times we'll have to explain to them why that added cost and added feature is not correct for their application.
Yeah, to me, it almost seems like in the world of pistons and all of that, coatings are, you know, about like trying to read an oil thread on different forms and everything as well. But, you know, with the different types, I mean, you know, like ceramic, the moly skirt, the hard anodized coating, and I'm just literally looking at the order form right now. What are the differences in those, and where does one apply and one not?
Yeah, so you know the anodizes coating we offer two different types. We offer a Type 3 hard anodize, which the whole piston gets anodized outside of the pin bores, and then we also offer Type 3 anodize with a PTFE coating. The difference between the two is one's a little bit more abrasive than the other. The PTFE Teflon coating is better for street application because it gives it a softer seal on the surface. So cold starts and, you know, lack of oil or extensive heat, it'll have a nice soft surface to rub against, where a true Type 3 anodize will try to grab metal if it loses lubrication. But Type 3 works very well in all-out race scenario where you would have prevention for micro welding on the ring grooves, heat soaking through the crowns. And then our ceramic crown coating is the same theory. It's a heat retention, but it's a sprayed on coating. So that only works really well with gas type applications. If you put it in a methanol or E85, the fuel actually acts like a solvent and it'll wash away the coating. So that's when we try to detour a customer either away from a coating totally or into an anodized coating, depending on the application.
How quick does that happen? Like you talk about ethanol, you know, which I'm not saying like, obviously people are racing, a lot of people are using race fuels and they know exactly what's in them. But again, people do things and, you know, I'll just grab some pump gas or do whatever. I mean, how quick does that actually get dissolved away?
It all depends on the tune-up condition. If it's overfueled, right away. If it's something that's fairly lean and it doesn't have a lot of excess fuel that would sit in between fires, it takes some time to wear away. You might see some blistering of the coating when you pull it apart after some runtime, where it gets underneath and tries to lift it.
Interesting. Do want to remind you, if you have a question at all, please feel free to put it into the chat, because we're definitely going to spend some time doing as much educating as we can. But we also want this to be an opportunity, especially if in your off season you're looking to do a rebuild, or you're a builder yourself, want to know something about the product line. We are definitely here for that. Some key points that you want customers to understand, just regarding pistons, rings, and pins, and again, like we mentioned earlier, these are all things that you can find a lot of myth out there on internet forums, what people think is right, wrong, better, worse, whatever it might be.
Whether it's pistons, pins, or rings in question, a good piston assembly comes with all three of them working in harmony. If a great set of pistons is mated with rings or pins that's inappropriate, then it's going to function, as mentioned. Diamond's best ammo to combat the challenging question of, what's going to perform ideally in my application or every application. It's the application information provided by the customer. If we receive little to no information on what the piston will be utilized for, then it could make it a challenge to fit with the proper components. But luckily, we've got a great team, as Mike had mentioned, that can help the customer kind of work through that. And trust me, we're going to alert somebody if we see a red flag pop up. So obviously the beauty is the partnership with Trend, on the wrist pin side of things. We have a great partnership with a couple of ring suppliers. It's we know what works, we know what's appropriate, and if the customer is ever confused or they need to know, we will tell them.
Yeah, being able to go direct, and especially being able to buy, again, just looking at the website, being able to get rings and different things like that. How important is that truly, to be able to go to more of a single source for some of these, parts and pieces that are all having to work together?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great benefit to the customer, as simple as it's one phone call, one place to order the stuff. So it saves them time on being pulled away from, engine builds and stuff like that, to be able to make phone calls to order parts. And it allows us to, have full control over the build, right? So if we get the rings in, we can measure them. We know exactly what back cuts, what radiuses the ring grooves need to, to work with that ring set. We can measure the wrist pins. We know what the pin lock spacing needs to be to set the pin in play correctly, what pin fit clearance we need to do for the pin diameter. So it kind of, like Steve said, it all goes in harmony, to make the perfect combination all together.
That is pretty interesting. And one thing I do like what you said too is having people there who are answering the phone, people who are talking to, who actually have put their hands, have built engines, have done all of these things. Because I know, it doesn't matter what you do. You can make the joke about going to the home improvement store and, walking in there and someone knows exactly what they want, and the person asking them if they can help them has no idea just how valuable that is to your customer base.
Oh yeah. I mean, 100%, our business is based, around business success is based around our customer service. If you don't have the right guys on the phone, helping the customers work through and troubleshoot and, build out the proper specs, the parts, but when the parts get to the customer, they're going to be wrong. And the whole process is, spoiled from that.
How hard is it to follow the trends? I mean, I know you start to see stuff when it comes to orders and different things like that, but even trying to get ahead of the game just a little bit, and maybe even as part of your development and innovation.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has always been good for Diamond, and staying a step ahead, or, at least in the front four of the upcoming trends, is being able to, work with the racers direct, being at the racetrack, being in the mud with those guys, learning, hey, this doesn't work. We're having issues with this. You think we can change this? So it's always a constant feed, from our customers on improvements, changes, crazy ideas. There's been stuff where customers call and say, hey, I want to try this. And we're like, man, that's crazy. We try it, and some of the stuff works, some of it doesn't. It's always, every day is a new day to learn. And I think, as we go through that and we keep an open mind, that's our biggest tool, is being able to step in the forefront and be able to make changes on the fly and design new things.
Mm-hmm. A question from the chat. A rule of thumb for today's engine seems to be a 10-to-1 compression ratio is about max with steel heads on street gas. Aluminum heads seem to allow a bump up to 11-to-1. First, what are your thoughts on that? How much power is lost eliminating a domed piston in a 60s SBC?
Some of that too, and a lot of people don't account for is camshaft with that, depending on your duration, your center line, your lift, you could bleed off, have more static compression, but yet bleed it off and still be functional with pump gas. Dome compared to a flat top, there's no real measurement of saying, X amount of horsepower will be lost. That really is based on chamber shape, spark plug location, how tall the dome is. If you got something that's got a max dome in it, yeah, that's gonna shut down your flame front over the top of the dome at TDC. But depending on what you're doing for ignition timing and such like that, those are all variables that come into play. So, there's not a real simple, straight answer towards that.
Yeah. Again, some people might be racing under very specific rules when it relates to the engine and, different things like that. How much of that, I would assume, is that like one of the first things you might also need to know up front if you're trying to help someone, if they're like, hey, my series has this compression rule, or I have this or whatever. Where does that come into play, especially if I'm someone who literally wants to just push it right to the very edge?
Oh yeah, definitely. We see a lot of that. Super stock and factory stock, and some circle track classes where a lot of limitations to what you can and cannot do to the piston. Like some series don't allow gas ports. Well, in the past we've worked with Total Seal, and now it's become a pretty popular thing. Is we can offer a gas ported ring. So if the rules say you can't gas port a piston, but it doesn't anything about the ring set, we can add side gas ports into the actual top ring, and it does the same process of like the piston would be gas ported. So there's definitely some tricks in the trade when it comes to pushing the limits on what you can and what you can't do with the rules of certain organizations.
All right, now that has to be kind of fun though, chasing the rule book, finding the gray area, figuring out what they missed and what you can do to at least get around it, right?
Yeah. There's definitely some fun in that, and then there's sometimes you're kind of beating your head against the wall for no gains, but like I said, you have to go forward to find out if it's worth it or not.
That is pretty neat. And when you run into things like this, on the one hand, I would think that especially if you're selling product, you want to tell the world, guess what we figured out? On the other hand, people buying it probably don't want you to tell anybody because they're the ones who want it. So how do you do that dance?
Yeah. So, our business being primarily custom, the relationship between the customer and ours for that certain job is just that, we tend not to share any information out unless we're asked. If it's proprietary to the customer, then we don't know anything, right? But if it's something, hey, what if we gas port this? Well, yeah, you might see a benefit here, so it's ask and, we may or may not be able to tell you type situation.
Yeah, you know what, which is completely fair. And, especially for everyone involved. When people start ordering custom pistons and you see that trend, are there times where the custom pistons start to become the regular product line, the off the shelf? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Most of all our shelf stock started off as a custom, some form of another. And then, as we've seen popularity and repeat orders, that starts to turn the wheels on the production or the product development side. And then each year we build out, X amount of new products that we can fit into production without tampering lead times. And then that kind of use that as a driving force.
All right, here's a good question. Literally just popped up. When it comes to alloys, is strongest the best? Any comments?
Yes. So we offer two different alloys, 2618 or 4032. 2618 is going to be your more race part. 4032 has a higher silicon rating, so that allows you to run it in more of a street application because you can run it tighter to piston wall clearance, has less expansion, but it also is more brittle. So if you were to kind of just look at it as which one would crack and which one would dent if you hit it with a hammer, 2618 would dent, 4032 would shatter. But they both fit, depending on the application. We got some drag stuff that's got 4032 just because it's low heat, low ignition timing. And then there's a lot of street stuff. Most are modern, 99.9% of our modern muscle stuff parts out there are all 2618. And, most of that is street driven, weekend warrior type stuff.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people, like you said, this particular question, is strongest best, or we were talking about coding. Someone heard this is best, but it's not always best for what I want to do. When do we start getting into areas that, hey, I think I want this, and it's like, no, you absolutely don't want this?
Yeah, I mean, we get that every day, right? And then a lot of times too, you get customers that, especially on the power adder stuff, we're only, we want to build this, we don't want to spray with 200. Well, and then we ask, do you think you're going to upgrade, go higher? Well, yeah, if it's not fast enough, we're probably going to spray it with 400. So it's like, okay, well, we're not going to build it for 200. We'll build it for 400 because that's where you think you're going to be in a year or two. We try to guide the customer into what their max belief of what they're going to, achieve out of their engine and their combination.
Judy just reminded me that you guys have a video as well that you want to run. So forgive me for not getting to that sooner. Do you want to put that up?
Are we pulling up or is Judy?
Is that something that you share on your screen, or do we pull that up for you?
Yeah, I don't have the video here. I thought we sent it to Judy.
Okay, yeah, she says they'll run it. So, okay, she'll get it here in just a quick second. So as soon as they're ready with it, then we'll make sure we get it over to get it up there on the deal. Some of the other products too, and again, I was having a lot of fun, over the last couple of days, just perusing through your website and some of the things you offer. The Diamond Pistons chamber mold kit.
Yeah,
tell us about that.
Yeah, so we offer a few different engine building tools. Chamber mold kit is one of our most popular. Basically, it's a two-part epoxy that allows the customer to pull a mold of their combustion chamber. That way, a lot of times, like if a max effort dome or we need a cylinder head that we don't have on file, we'll have the customer pour a mold. And then once we get it here, we can check it on our CMM and our 3D scanner to build out basically the chamber surface. And then engineering would use that as their design parameters to design the dome around.
I mean, this literally seems like a fascinating tool. All right, here comes your video, so we'll get that up.
Diamond's been in business since 1968. I was first a customer of Diamond early on, and then I was employed at Diamond in the customer service portion, and that was in the mid-'80s. And then we had an opportunity to come back and buy Diamond in 2000. Way back in 1968, Diamond was the leader in the Pro Stock stuff. They did a lot of the early Pro Stock engines, and then they moved on and they did a lot of NASCAR stuff after that. And after we purchased the company, we had an opportunity to work with Greg Anderson on his Pro Stock deal. So it was kind of like history repeating itself. Yeah, I learned early on when I was employed at Diamond, one of the things that I really appreciate about the founders of Diamond is they gave everybody the same support. At that time, we were doing a lot of NASCAR work, and if an average Saturday night racer called, he got the same product, support and attention that the Richard Petty's and some of the well-known people got, and I really appreciated that. We've tried to instill that today.
My name is John Kemp, and I'm engineering manager for Diamond Pistons. I've been here for 18 years. What sets Diamond apart from the competitors is that we create lots and lots of custom features. So no matter what you send us piston-wise, we will figure out a way to machine it. So from research and development standpoint, we can carry on with any research and development and iterative design process that's necessary, and we will strive to do that. We're not a company that you just order one thing from and that's all you get. Whether it's a custom feature or support that you're in need of, Diamond Pistons is here to support you. We'll work from start to finish on your custom design and development project, and we'll be here every step of the way if you need us.
Stevie Fast Jackson, KTR, here at Lights Out 11 at South Georgia Motorsports Park. We got the Shadow 2.0 on maximum kill. The components that it takes to keep this engine and this race car alive, running 215 miles an hour and going 354 on a street tire, are pretty substantial. We do a lot of abuse to the engine. This thing's pretty much detonating from the time I start it to the time I shut it off. If you guys watch the car run, you can see how much smoke's coming out of the trunk down there. We're almost burning it up every pass. I've ran Diamond Pistons and Trend Performance products for the last decade, and there's nothing else I trust to put in my engines to handle the kind of abuse that I put on them. And when you got Billy Stocklin putting a main jet in it, you just really never know what can happen.
What's up guys, Alex Laughlin here, winner of Lights Out 10, US Nationals, and I run Pro Stock, Pro Mod, and Radio vs. the World, and I run Diamond Pistons in literally every single car. We've made record runs and everything. There's no doubt that Diamond Pistons is the absolute best manufacturer in the industry, and I've seen these guys stuff. They've got a top-notch operation, and there's no doubt that these guys have the best products in the industry, and that's why we run them in everything.
All right, that was pretty interesting. What are some things that you learn, or can you learn after you see a piston come out of a car?
Yeah, so I mean, we treat, the piston is like a painting canvas, right? Especially after it's run. We can see wear patterns, traits on skirts, where we can make adjustments to skirt profiles, barrel and cam. So the profile as it goes down the skirt and around, to cure some of that. Ring groove, wearness, micro welding, land wear, pin wear. Pin bore is one of the most critical areas of a piston to learn from, anywhere from tuliping out towards the lock side, or banana shaping the pin bore as the part tries to crown under compression. So we can change clearances and shapes and features there to keep that area happy and the pin from pushing out lubricant when it's under crowning. Same thing with crown design and valve pockets. We can see from carbon buildup and crown wear how the combustion's happening across the part. Do we need to lower the dome or add a fire slot to get that more traditionally across the crown instead of a located area? Gas ports, we can see how clean it is on the backside of the groove, compared to the location of the gas port. Is it pushing on the ring completely, or is it look like it's bleeding off?
It's a quick tale of the tune-up.
Yeah.
You know, it's if we ever get a piston back from a customer and there were some issues, or if they're looking to make improvements, and we can look at a used piston and pretty much be able to pinpoint what they need to do or what we need to do. So it definitely helps to have that back in our hands.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know, and we've gotten parts back from a customer where the skirts are really wore, and, you know, we call and say, hey, you know, what's all the measurements? What's your stroke? What's your rod length? What's your cylinder length? Well, come to find out, you know, they changed the stroke or they changed the rod length in the engine at some point. And then that put the fit point, or the largest point of the skirt, at bottom dead center. It pulls out of the bottom of the sleeve. So at that point, as it tries to change direction, now you've increased the piston rock. So then we can make adjustments on the new set and cure those issues.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. And I like what you said too about, you know, you could look at it and say, hey, is this something that we can fix, or is this something where you're having some issues elsewhere? Is that typically pretty obvious? I mean, you know, to you guys, to a trained eye?
Oh yeah. Like I said, you know, especially with the staff that we had here, you know, a few of them, you know, have got over 25 years of engine build experience. So, you know, they've seen things that some racers haven't, you know, over their time of opening engines and inspecting them, and, you know, making tweaks and changes. And then we can kind of see some commonality issues amongst, you know, power adder parts. So like a nitrous engine, well, it lifted the top ring gland. Okay, well, let's look at your fuel. Are you overfueling it? Where are you at for fuel pressure on your nitrous system? Or it's collapsing the second ring in the third land. Well, it's probably too lean. You know, you're transferring heat that far down on the part and weakening the lands. So either we can, you know, change the tune-up, or we can thicken that area up, that, you know, to prevent, if you do get to that point of the tune-up again. Because a lot of guys, you know, pushing it towards the edge, you know, getting the best ETs or the best lap times, sometimes sacrifice parts, right? So how do we widen that window for the customer, you know, to be able to run on that edge and still have parts that survive the end of a race night? You know, that's the challenge.
Yeah, when you talk about power adders, at what point do you just literally need to start rethinking what you're doing, whether it's, you know, a coating, a type of piston, or whatever it might be, you know, because some people may just want to, you know, stick some turbos on it or add some nitrous or do whatever. At what point do you just completely need to rethink what you're doing on the inside?
About every time you change up a power adder,
Right.
you know, the different types of power adder are going to require different parameters on the piston. You know, compression ratio is a huge thing when it comes to nitrous power adder compared to boost from a turbo or boost from a supercharger. Is it a root style blower? You know, every segment of that type of power adder has a pretty common, you know, known bit of criteria requirements that need to be put into the engineering behind that part to have them live within that realm.
Right.
You know, some power adder is far more volatile than others. You know, some of it's much more tune-up oriented or fuel oriented. So, you know, really every single time, you know, you're obviously not going to build a turbo motor and then say, oh, forget it, I'm just going to go nitrous. You know, at that point, you got to pull everything down. Everything has to be changed from the cylinder heads to the pistons. Who knows? I mean, intakes and all that stuff. So it's more so for a dedicated build. You know, if you're going to keep it nitrous, or if it's going to be built for nitrous, you're probably going to want to, you know, keep it nitrous.
Yeah, I mean, there's some commonalities, you know, like piston thickness, clearance, that, you know, across all power adder applications kind of fit in the same box. But then you start getting into ring gaps, ring clearance, like Steve said, compression, coatings, actual distance between the pin and the crown. You know, that varies once you start talking anywhere from a blower application to a turbo or a nitrous.
Mm-hmm. Another question from the chat: in the event of a piston failure, do you offer analysis? Can I send you my pistons and say,
Yes.
What do you see?
Yes, yeah, that would be that would be the first thing that we would, you know, inform you of. If you called and said, hey, you know, we failed this part, we tell you, let's get them in a box, get them back to us, let us go through and you know, check them out, because our measuring tools here are going to be a lot more thorough than what you would have, in your garage or your shop. We can put them on a CMM, and then we can run that failure to try to simulate it in SolidWorks in, FEA. And a lot of times too, talking about FEA, so we get a customer, we fail a part, right? And then we can simulate it and mimic it in FEA. Well, now that allows us to say, okay, if we change this, we cured this. Or if we need to change A, B, and C, and then that'll cure that issue. And then we don't see any other issues, outside of that design change. Then, we go to the CNC and we start making some more parts.
In that case, is it important to you to have all the pistons that came out of that engine and know the location and all of that?
Yeah, we tend to, request all the pistons, all the pins, and all the rings, because they all work, in conjunction with each other. And, sometimes depending on the failure, we'll even ask for the bearings of the engine to see if we can see something going on there. It's tune-up related. If those all look good, then, we go back to looking at a piston design to see if there's something there we can pinpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. Again, it's just doing the CSI on something like that and trying to solve the problem for the next time. Or maybe even is there ever an approach that, hey, this is just kind of the wrong idea for what you're trying to do, the way you're adding your power, the way you're doing whatever it might be.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So when it comes to all the different offerings of pistons, the catalog pistons, one thing, the custom pistons are another thing. If I'm just looking for the catalog, I'm not, really looking to do something, completely custom, completely trick and all of that. Just kind of give me an idea. I know, if you're on the website, it could be domestic, it could be muscle, it could be, compact, full NHRA, whatever it might be. Kind of take us through that a little bit.
Yeah. So our website's really, really customer driven and easy to interact. The way we have our product line set up, you basically would search under the type of engine that you would have. And then once that pulls up, you can filter down by bore size, stroke, rod length, compression ratio. And then that'll basically filter down to pinpoint to the exact part number you need. So it's very user friendly on that spec. And if it's something that you can't find on there, it's simple as just to reach out to us and then we can, work with you. And like we said, if we don't have it on the shelf, we can build it as custom. And if it gets beyond a custom, we also do a ton of full billet parts. And that's a whole nother aspect that kind of opens up the whole box for whatever design that we need to make, especially on a custom. If a customer calls and orders a part and it doesn't quite fit perfect on a forging that we have, well, then we have the ability to just make it out of a solid chunk. And then we can change the structural design of the part to whatever shape we need to make it work, best for that application.
And all of that's done right in the same place where you sit?
Yep. So we do forgings, our own forgings, billet slugs, full machining, all the coatings in-house. So everything's kind of controlled under our own umbrella. So
is there anything that you see like, maybe one particular type of series is starting to go a direction, or maybe some trends are changing here or there?
Yeah. So like sprint car, for example, a lot of those engine builders are now on full billet parts. And the reason for that is it allows us to do some unique crown shapes and structural struts to cure some of the cracking issues from, over endurance and heat cycles of the part that a forging you wouldn't be able to quite machine in a forging without having stress risers or.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you start to see where, hey, a trend is going this way, and now we're going to do billet, now we're going to do this? I mean, a lot of times in racing, you start to see, someone has something, someone's going to do better, and all of a sudden the dollars start flying out of the wallet before the sanctioning body or the series says, okay, we need to back all of this up, and we're going to go spec this, or we're going to do this that way. Give us an idea of what that give and take becomes.
Yeah, I mean, we've been really fortunate. The markets that we're in, we haven't had much of pushback on spec side of the thing. NHRA, like factory stock and factory showdown, there is parameters there that we have to oblige by. But, most of especially the circle track and road race and, heads up drag racing, it really doesn't affect us too much.
Yeah, the pricing doesn't really get too out of control until you start adding a whole ton of options, right? Obviously going from a forging to a billet, there's going to be a pretty significant cost, but a lot of the class rules that are regulating the options that the eraser is allowed to use will dictate that price and keep everything relatively small.
That's good. How much longer does it take to actually build something from a forging as opposed to a billet?
So the lead time is about the same. Crazy as it sounds, we've done billets for so long that we've refined the process. So the way we machine it, the first op basically machines the rough billet part in the whole bottom structure. So that it cuts out operations that you would have down the line on a forging where you would have internal milling, undercut features. We can do all that in one op. So what we take from the backside, we add to the front side, but it balances out about the same time frame.
Oh, okay. Wow. That to me, I would not have thought that. I would almost thought like at a certain point you get from a billet to what looks like a forge, and then you build it out like there's a big.
Yeah. I mean, there's some added engineering time because there's more steps and processes of building out that model and the programs. But production wise, it's about the same.
That's not bad. How about, for, again, people who are building things right now, you guys are manufacturing your own, what you guys are doing. And so I would think that in a lot of ways that things that other people see in the world, we were just talking about it in the last chat with Stock Car Steel, having to worry about supply issues and different things like that. Are you affected by that?
Yeah, I mean, raw material, like anyone else in any other industry, is becoming quite the pain to get. We've done a really good job of pre-planning, at the beginning of the pandemic to get in material on the floor to try to stay ahead of it. We've added some operations and equipment in our press department to push out more product, more forgings. So we've done a really good job of, to this point of keeping our head above water.
The beautiful part being a small business, right? We're quick to pivot, we're quick on our feet, and we've got plenty of years of knowledge. And of course, we're the Detroit brand with Trend, Diamond, and Dart. We have a lot of resources we can bounce between the businesses. But, don't get me wrong, we have our fair share of supply chain crisis. That it's everything from the chemicals that we use to make the combustion chamber mold kits that you had mentioned earlier, having a shortage on that, trying to resource, the chemicals over to some, corrugate or any type of, push rod material or, all that stuff.
Material.
Yeah, exactly. All the material, and 98% of that is all sourced stateside, but you've got a labor crisis. You've got, the list goes on. We heard it well from Greg. He's hit the nail on the head. Everyone's going through it. It's just who can, navigate it faster and try and come out on top. So we never stop growing. Just keep on pushing.
Yeah. You see any of that changing at all? You see things sort of coming out on the backside of it, or are you still having to really do some chasing?
Yeah, we're chasing, it seems like every time you turn around, you're just, throwing some more pennies at it, right? You're throwing pennies in this pot, throwing pennies over here. And, we're doing what we got to do to keep the customer satisfied and also cut leads. We still have to grow, right? So we're at this point, it's whatever it takes to keep the business moving onward and upward. So we're just one day at a time. And just making, like I said, quick pivots to enhance machine time, or, we're cross-training staff, right, on a reduced headcount. So, we're.
And on the material side, we have a lot of forgings that kind of overlay or cross over. So we may be short on one of the smaller sizes, forging diameter wise, but it may fit on the next size up, to keep that order moving. So we have, that availability to be able to, we're not stuck in one small box that this net shape forging only works with this.
Don't let us fool you. We've got a whole team that are far more advanced with this stuff than Mike and I. We give them all the praise in the world. So we're just blessed to be working with a team that's on top of it, and we're just out here, following their lead.
Yeah, but really, ultimately, on the good side of things, the customer side of things. I mean, realistically, I mean, if I'm a customer, if I'm calling to order, probably not likely to see any type of interruptions at this point.
No,
Y'all have managed
No.
it.
At this point.
no, and like I said, 99% of the things are unscathed, and we're just finding ways every single hour of every day to just keep on growing, keep on getting ahead.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating. How is for your business? Is it a constant, or is it hey, off season's getting really busy, mid season slows down? How does that work?
So yeah, I mean, right now we're going into our busy season. Usually right around October, November, it kicks up, and then we're wide open till February, March, July or January, February being the busiest, especially right after the trade shows. Everyone tries to get their orders in, and and especially the way the world is now. Seasonality has kind of been
it's been low. It's been almost non-existent. I mean, we've had so much panic buying over the last few months. I mean, the only control that we have to compare it to is 2019. And we are lighting up 2019 month after month after month.
Yeah, I mean,
so we've been really, really lucky.
It's been record after record, month in incoming orders for us since 2019, so.
Wow. That's great though. I mean, and it's not a bad problem. And I don't know how many engine builders are doing the same thing. Like you said, panic buying. If I'm a builder, I want to keep building engines. So I better call you guys, like I said, everyone's stocking up because they're stocking up.
They call and they go to order a camshaft, and it's X amount more weeks than they think it should be. So then they start going down the list, and they're like, well, I need to get pistons on order. I need to get this. I need to get that, so a lot of times it makes it a little bit easier for us having that large workflow, because then we can plan and really see farther out on what we need to get done and get out the door. And then it also helps the customer get at least get that portion of their build on
get
order.
These engine builders organized.
That out of necessity. Well, guys, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you feel has value to make sure the customer base knows about?
I think we're good.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're here, like I said, our sales and tech team are, the same guys that you are in the engine rooms and the race shops building these things. So if you ever got a question, concern, demand, give us a shout. We're always here to be able to help out.
Well, no question, the reputation speaks for itself, and even in talking to you guys, the knowledge it comes out. So I'm sure your customers are pretty happy or will continue to come back. So
that's the whole idea.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.